How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the channel. I'm the ChainBaker and it's been a while since we made some flatbreads, so today I got a delicious tortilla recipe for you. Let's go to the kitchen and check it out. Ever since I made my fat comparison video, I've been trying out different recipes using lard. And tortillas are one of those breads made using lard traditionally. This is actually the second tortilla recipe on my channel. But this one is actually easier than the first one, and better. Super thin, flexible, moist and chewy. And of course tasty. What more could you want? Let's get right to it and see what we'll need to make these. You'll need a large pan, ideally not a non-stick pan, but I just don't have another one. And of course we'll need a bowl, scales, a dough scraper and a rolling pin. As for the ingredients, white bread flour, salt, baking powder, water and some lard. Now store-bought lard can be pretty much tasteless, so we'll make our own. And it's super simple. All you need is some smoked bacon lardons. But if you don't eat pork, you can use other fats in this recipe, like oil or butter. But it is the lard that makes this special. And to render down the fat, simply place your lardons in a pan, get them on the stove on medium to high heat and cook them for around 15 minutes. Be sure to stir them occasionally so they don't stick to the bottom of the pan and burn. Once they have gone all brown and crispy, there's no more fat to extract. We have our lard. Now all you need to do is strain it off and leave it to cool down. I got 50 grams of lard from about 200 grams of lardons. That's around 1.75 ounces out of 7 ounces. I'd suggest you make more than what you think you need, and if you have something left over, you can use it for something else. You can store it in the fridge for several days. Now the thing that makes these tortillas chewy and flexible is boiling water. So in a large bowl, add the boiling water, the baking powder and the salt. Give it all a good mix before adding the flour. Boiling water gelatinizes the starch in the flour, and that's how it gets that unique texture. And the Japanese have a similar method called udane, although it does not include all the flour in the recipe, only part of it. Mix the dough well until there's no more dry flour left. I've found that a fork is a good tool for this. You may have noticed that we have not added the lard yet. We want to leave the flour to hydrate, absorb the water and develop some gluten before we do so. So cover the dough and rest it for 30 minutes. And now we can move on. Now I kept my lard in the fridge, so it's set at the moment. But it has such a low melting temperature that it will turn to liquid as soon as you add it to the dough. Especially as soon as you start touching it with your hands. Now this part will be a little bit greasy, but don't get discouraged. This is how you add fat to a high fat content dough. And brute force is the way to go here. Just squish it and squeeze it as hard as you can. And while at first it'll feel quite solid and thick, it will become loose and fall into pieces as you keep going. But as you keep going in further, it will start coming together again. And don't expect it to be instant. It will take around 2 minutes or so. And once all of the fat has been absorbed into the dough, we can drop it out on the table and start kneading it. And because we let the flour hydrate before adding the fat, this will be quite easy. I'll start with the stretch and fold method. Pick the dough up by one side, turn it 90 degrees, stretch it against the table and fold it forwards. This is a great method for kneading stretchy dough. But this dough is quite cohesive, so you could even switch to the regular method if you wanted to. So what I like to do is press down and forwards with the heel of my right hand, and then using the fingers of my left hand I fold the piece of dough under the heel of my right hand. Then I turn it and repeat. But regardless of which method you decide to use, the whole kneading process should not take more than 6 minutes. It's quite quick. And once your dough is nice and smooth, it's ready. And the best part about tortillas is that you don't need to ferment them. So the dough can be divided straight after mixing. And I will always suggest using your scales for this. If you want your tortillas to be all the same size, you have to weigh your dough and then divide it. And you can't just add up the ingredients in the recipe and then use that as a guide. It'll never work. Because by the time you have finished mixing, there's always less dough. After dividing, we need to shape these little dough pieces into balls. Take a piece of dough and place it on the table with the smoothest side on the bottom. Then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up again and tighten it against the table. Lastly, you can pick it up and pinch the seam together at the bottom. This recipe makes 6 25cm or 10-inch tortillas. Now if you don't have a large pan like I do, then you can divide your dough into more pieces. Then you get smaller tortillas, but the correct thickness. To make our life easier when it comes to rolling these out, we'll chill them down in the fridge. This dough is easier to work with when it's cold. Plus it makes it quite convenient, because if you wanted to, you could leave them in the fridge for up to a whole day and then roll them out. But I'll just pop them in for 1 hour and that should be sufficient. If you are in a rush, you can leave them in for as little as 30 minutes. It's been 1 hour and I'm ready to roll. The dough was really soft and loose before. Now it's nice and solid. The rolling process doesn't require much skill. Dust your dough ball with flour on both sides and keep the flour close by, because we'll need it. Always like to start flattening the dough ball by hand before moving on with the rolling pin. This step gets it into a general shape, and it will make it open up more evenly as we start rolling it. And another tip to make them nice and even is to turn the dough every time you roll it. This will make it open up nice and gradually and stay round. And lastly, you can finish it off by hand, similarly to opening up a pizza dough. The main thing here is patience. If you rush it, you will tear it. It will become misshapen, and you really want them to be nice and thin. Like I said, that tiny dough ball should make a 25 cm or 10-inch tortilla. But don't worry too much. As I always say, if you mess up that first one, you got plenty more to practice on. And if you mess up most of them, at least the last one will be perfect, right? Now there's two ways you can do this. You can either roll them out and cook them one by one, or roll them all at the same time and then cook them. If your kitchen is quite warm and humid, you may want to separate these. Use some non-stick paper perhaps. But as you can see, I didn't have any problems with them sticking together. Cook them on high heat for no more than 2 minutes in total. And you want to flip them every 30 seconds or so. If you have a nice iron pan, it may take even less time. We're not expecting a lot of coloration, just a few dark spots where the bubbles are, because the longer you cook them, the drier they will get. So if you try and cook them until they're brown all over, you'll end up with a bunch of massive crackers. This is about the most color you want on a tortilla. It is fully cooked, moist and pliable. And to keep them moist and pliable for longer, you want to cover them as soon as they come out the pan. And I mean cover them right away. As soon as one comes out of the pan, you cover it. And that's exactly what I did. And as you can see, they are nice and flexible. If you wait, it will dry out. And now all we need to do is get some nice fillings and make ourselves a wrap. And of course you can fill your wraps with whatever you like. You can make light veggie wraps or greasy burritos. That's totally up to you. This wrap will be able to hold it all. Now it's not massive, so you ain't gonna be making huge wraps, but that just gives you an excuse to make more. I really enjoyed making these tortillas. They were certainly easier than my previous recipe. Have you tried my other tortilla recipe? Let me know down in the comments. And if you have, I would highly suggest you try this one as well. See how it stacks up. I for one definitely prefer this one, for how easy it is to make and for the extra flavor that the lard brings. If you are vegetarian, I would suggest using butter. That's the next best thing. But whatever you use, I'm sure you'll enjoy this recipe. So what do you think of this recipe? And what's your favorite kind of flatbread? Let me know down in the comments. To see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.